Hello everyone and welcome to Educare 247. This is the 8th lecture in the series on management and today we'll be covering MCQs related to controlling. This lecture is relevant for RBI Grade B as well as SEBI Grade A 2020 examination. Now before moving on, Educare 247 brings you SEBI Grade A 2020 crash course which features around 5000 plus MCQs with concise content and live doubt sessions. So you can log on to the website and apply coupon code SEBI to get 1500 rupees off on the course. Now before moving forward, let us understand more about controlling. Controlling is the process of evaluating actual performance and, if necessary, taking corrective actions so that the performance is in accordance with the planned performance. Controlling as an element of management process involves analyzing whether actions are being taken as planned and taking corrective actions to make these to conform to planning. Controlling is both backward as well as forward looking. It is backward looking because control action is based on the past performance. It is forward looking because one can control future happenings and not the past. In the light of the past performance, managers suggest corrective actions for a future period. Controlling is relevant at all management levels, though nature, scope, and limit of controlling functions may be different at different management levels. Controlling is a continuous process. It follows a definite pattern and timetable, month after month and year after year. Controlling is action oriented as it indicates the areas of performance in which control actions may be taken. Planning serves as the basis for controlling. It decides what is to be achieved, while controlling measures whether this has been achieved or not. Controlling provides the feedback to planning by measuring actual results and comparing them with standards. If this feedback says that actual results and standards match to each other, it is assumed that planning is alright. If there is a deviation between the two, this feedback alerts the planning process and actions based on that may require even replanning or change in the way the various actions are being performed. Moving on to the MCQs. Which of the following would be included in the controlling function? A. Measuring results against corporate objectives. B. Explaining routines. C. Setting up of standards. Or D. Giving of assignments. So the correct answer here is A. That is, measuring results against corporate objectives. It is a part of the controlling process and involves measuring the actual work performance in terms in which control standards have been set. For example, if performance standards have been set in terms of quantity of output produced, the actual performance should be measured in terms of quantity of output which has been produced. For measuring performance which is qualitative and intangible, such as human relations, employee morale, techniques like psychological tests and opinion surveys may be applied. Moving on to the next question. Sudhir runs a logistic company. The tour in charges of each trip in the company is expected to submit a report to the event manager on the completion of every trip. Identify the step in the controlling process being described in the above lines. So the options are A. Setting up of standards, B. Measurement of actual performance, C. Taking corrective action, or D. Analyzing the deviations. So the correct answer here is B, that is, measuring up of actual performance. So as mentioned earlier, controlling involves ensuring that performance does not deviate from the standards. It comprises of 5 steps, which includes setting up of standards, measuring up of performances, comparing the performance to the standards, determining the reasons for the deviations, and then taking up corrective action as required. Corrective actions may be taken by eliminating the negative factors which have caused a deviation between actual performance and standard performance. It includes reviewing the performance standards if these are not feasible to be achieved in the present situation. It may require review and consequent change of plans. Moving on to the next question. Dash concept of control management is based on the belief that if you try to control everything, you may end up controlling nothing. And the options are A. Critical point control, B. Key result areas, C. Management by exception, or D. Deviations. So the correct answer here is C. That is management by exception. So, manage by exception is a strategy in which managers will only step in when there are significant deviations from the planned outcomes. These can be either operational or financial outcomes. Assuming that businesses recruit competent people, they are quite capable of getting on with their jobs without intervention from management. By focusing on strategic business goals and plans, managers are able to enhance the value of their contribution to the business. However, when performance isn't up to expectation, managers should step in. These are exceptions where management action is needed to ensure the company targets are met. In management by exception, four steps are involved, which includes setting up of objectives and defining what the norm should be. Secondly, assessing performance to see whether the performance is on track. Then, analyzing the work or records to determine where performance deviates from the objectives and solving the exceptions to the norm. The most obvious advantage of management by exception is the way it impacts on how managers use their time. Why monitor, analyze, and micromanage things that are going smoothly? When things are going well, employees can make their own decisions, leaving managers free to focus on decision making that's related to problem areas. It also works to motivate the staff to perform. Most people like being able to get on with their work with minimal management intervention. It allows them to make decisions and try new things that produces better outcomes and help them to own their task areas. Moving on to the next question, identify the process. Identify the correct sequence of steps which are involved in the controlling process. A. Measurement of actual performance, taking corrective action, setting performance standards, comparison of actual performance with standards, and analyzing deviations. B. Comparison of actual performance with standards, setting up of performance standards, measurement of the actual performance, analyzing deviations, and taking corrective action. C. Setting performance standards, measurement of actual performance, comparison of actual performance with standards, analyzing deviations, and taking corrective action. Or D. Taking corrective action, measurement of actual performance, comparison of actual performance with the standards, analyzing deviations, and setting up of performance standards. So the correct answer here is C, that is, setting up of performance standards, measurement of actual performance, comparison of actual performance with the standards, analyzing deviations, and finally taking corrective action. So, in the first case, which includes establishment of control standards, every function in the organization begins with plans which specifies objectives which are to be achieved. In the light of these objectives, standards for work performance are established. These standards provide criteria against which the actual performance results are measured. For example, output produced, the profit earned, and cost incurred. After setting up of the standards, it is important to decide about the level of achievement of performance which will be regarded as good. For this purpose, upper and lower limits of satisfactory performance in the form of control range should be prescribed. The next step is the measurement of actual performance. It involves measuring the actual performance in terms in which control standards have been set. For example, if performance standards have been set in terms of quantity of outputs produced, the actual performance should be measured in terms of quantity of output produced. For measuring performance, which is qualitative and intangible, such as human relations, techniques like psychological tests and opinion surveys may be applied. The next step is the comparison of actual and standard performance. It involves finding out the extent of deviation between standard performance and actual performance and identifying the causes of such deviations. When the performance standards are achieved, no further managerial action is necessary and the controlling process is complete. However, performance standards may not be achieved in all cases, and the extent of deviations between performance standards and actual performance may differ from case to case. The next step is to analyze deviations and take corrective action. It is the last step in the controlling process and requires actions which are required to be taken to maintain the desired level of performance in the future. It involves taking measures to eliminate the negative factors which have caused deviation between actual and standard performance. It also involves reviewing performance standards, and if they are not feasible, it may require a review and consequently the change of plans. Moving on to the next question. Ram Prakash set up a small business unit for manufacturing of detergent. In order to market the detergent in the local residential area, he has appointed a team of 10 salesmen. Each salesman is expected to sell at least 200 units of detergent within a week's time. Identify the importance of controlling being highlighted in the above case. A. Controlling helps in judging accuracy of standards. B. It ensures the efficient use of resources. C. It helps in improving employee motivation. Or D. It facilitates coordination in action. So the correct answer here is C. That is, it helps in improving employee motivation. With the targets being given to the salesman, they feel motivated to achieve the target on time. At the same time, with the number of units being determined, a manager can look at the number of units being sold by the salesman and can help determine the performance of every salesman in the area. In this way, he can measure the actual and the standard performance and thus identify areas which are required to be improved upon. So that's it for this lecture, but prior to ending it, Educate 247 brings you a comprehensive course for RBI Grade B 2020. So you can log on to the website and enjoy the benefits of the full video course. Thank you and happy learning.